I'm going to start actually with a small story, which I was reading in the morning, and lead on to what I really wanted to share. The story goes like this. Google, in 2011, actually decided to do an experiment. They called this project as Google Fiber. So essentially what they did was they invited bids from various cities and told those various cities that we will do a dramatic change in the internet and broadband infrastructure in your city, and all we want is you allow us a free way into your city. So and the deal which they were offering was the average speed of the internet in 2011 in most US cities was around 7 Mbps. And Google was actually offering 1,000 Mbps at the same cost. That was a discontinuity. Somebody talked about innovation. So obviously a number of cities bid, and finally one city, Kansas City, that was the city which won the bid. So this is what they did. They literally in a matter of months, probably, they laid out completely the fiber in that city. And so I'm cutting to 2015. So I'm cutting a long story short. So what they have offered in Kansas City is 1,000 Mbps plus television, which is a broadband plus television, at the same price at which internet was there. And the internet which the others are giving, the Verizons, AT&Ts, Comcast, and Time Warners of the world, is given free. So they're actually giving what the others give free, and they are giving internet plus 150 channels at the same price which others were charging. So that's the discontinuity. Now the story doesn't end there. What they also did was, because Google being Google, they know the consumer profiles, and they also sell ads. What they were essentially able to offer brands which was advertising is that they could actually target the advertising in every household to the viewer who's actually watching it. So let's say if there is a football game going on, or if there is a soap opera going on, the man of the house is watching it in the drawing room during the break, and all of them are watching. The man is watching the same program, the wife is watching the same program in the bedroom, and the young kid is watching it on the laptop. Even as the same program goes on, they were actually able to give a beer ad in the drawing room, a cosmetic ad in the bedroom, and something for the kid on the laptop. Now that's the story. Now, if you think that this is a fable, this is current scenario. So currently, this is being rolled out to some top 10 cities in the US. And if you think that this continuity is long away, I think this continuity is probably a year or two away at best in India. Yeah, so that's the picture. And so I was asked to talk about, as a part of the roundup, since I represent media, what is it that media is doing, and what is it that brands should be doing in a situation like this, which is not too far away from where we are today. I'm not going to dwell too much on media, on what the media industry is doing, because it's frankly not a good story to tell. Because as media, and I represent broadcast media, my company represents broadcast print media. Not very long ago, we used to have this business brand called Businessworld. Our dilemma is pretty much captured by Anurag, if you permit me, exactly like this. In today's world, we are all still struggling to get reach. We do not know whether we need to go out there and capture reach, or we need to modernize and move with the times. So in today's times, we have Businessworld, www.businessworld.in, and we are still launching a book and not an app. So that's the dilemma we're all in. So broadcasters are still struggling for reach. We're still fighting to get more and more viewers to watch the platform. We are hanging on to our platform, just as he's hanging on to a book. We are all hanging on to the current platforms we have. Some are hanging on to television, some are hanging on to print. and we're caught in a kind of flux as to whether we need to modernize and move with the times, or innovate and build the business for the future, or try and protect our current businesses. So that's the kind of dilemma which I think a large number of media guys are in, whether it's a print medium or a broadcast medium or a television medium. I think the important thing, since the focus here is on brands, and that's my sort of hobby horse, so I'm going to really focus on, I think, what is it that brands are going to face as a challenge, and what is it I believe they should be doing going forward. And I'm not talking about tomorrow, I'm literally talking about from now onwards. So, I have this pet hobby horse that if you say more than 3 things, people will forget. So I'm going to stick to just 3 things, 3 things which I think brands should be doing. The first and foremost is, I think brands should be starting to chase profiles and not eyeballs. I think even now, a lot of brands, if you look at their media plan, I want, TG, SEC, ABC, 15 plus. People don't go beyond this. Brand managers are very comfortable in not wanting to dive deep and actually define far more sharply what is the kind of profile they want. We broadcasters are even more notorious. We don't even know the kind of profile we are generating, and we are very happy selling eyeballs because there are people happily paying us for those eyeballs. So I think this fundamentally has to change. Fundamentally, brands have to start defining their profiles far more sharper, because it's not very, the day is not very far off when profiles are going to be sold. So, and that's what Google is doing. Google is actually selling profile. Because Google is selling profile in that market, a brand is able to pinpoint and target the audience on exactly what kind of audience is going to watch this ad, and hence what kind of ad I can place in that household. The second and the link bit on profile and the benefit of profile is that when this happens, remember that the measurement is going to be perfect. In Kansas City, while Nielsen may have a few boxes, Google has 100% of all the boxes. So Google can actually know who's watching, how many people are watching, exactly like how they do today on the net. They're able to give you exactly how many clicks happened, how many people logged in, how many people watched the ad from start to end. So the bang for the buck, or the kind of money you spend and the kind of value which you're going to generate for that money is going to be very, very good. So the return on the investment is going to be pretty good, and that's the benefit. So, and this can only happen when brands start defining their profiles much sharply and start chasing profiles. And if I dare say, start putting on pressure on the channels, whether it's broadcasters or prints, to define far more sharply what is the kind of profile which they're going to need. So this is my first point, which is about don't chase eyeballs, change profiles. The second point which I wanted to make is that it's not just alone if you happen to reach a household and reach an eyeball. It's also about how because there is also another phenomena which is happening, which is people don't want to see advertising. It's the truth. Nobody wants to see advertising, they zap it. And one of the problems with the advanced technology is that the advanced technology also gives the viewer an option to zap their ads or move forward, and they don't want to see the ads. So that's a challenge. So, how do you actually then, in an environment like this where the consumer has the remote or the viewer has the remote, and the viewer has the tendency to zap, and the viewer per se does not like interruptive advertising when they're watching some engaging content, what do you do in a situation like this? So I think a phenomena which is now catching on is how do brands integrate themselves, leave the 30-second, 45-second ad format, and start integrating themselves into the content itself. A few years back, we all watched with a lot of amusement when the Zandu Bam song was being played in a Dabang movie by, I think, Malaika, or even the, that was the Zandu Bam one, or even the Fevicol one. But, the truth is that this is not new. If I remember right, as memory goes, I think one of the earliest in-content brand placements which I remember from memory is Aston Martin in a James Bond movie. You know, James Bond's cars always used to be either an Aston Martin or a BMW. And that goes many, many moons back when I was in college. So this is not new, but this is a phenomenon now catching up. Now you will find increasingly brands actually leaving the 30-second ad format and starting to integrate with the content, because they believe that they should be there when the consumer's engagement is there. So I think brands have to now start thinking beyond the 30-second format and start getting integrated into content. This is happening in movies, this is happening in television content, this is happening in all kinds of content. In music, so this is happening in all kinds of content. So I think brands have to start thinking beyond just, you know, communicating their brand message only through a print ad or a 30-second television commercial, and start thinking about how do we actually integrate with the content, because that is where the engagement is there, the consumer engagement is there. So that's my second point, which is how do brands actually now start integrating and getting into in-placement, in-content integration, because if they don't do that, they're on a serious risk of another consumer trend, which is consumers not wanting to see interruptive advertising and consumers actually zapping the ad. The third and my last point on what I think brands should be doing is about the creative itself. I personally don't believe that creativity is going to die. I think it's going to actually certainly be far more challenging in the days to come on how a creative, when I say creative, I'm talking about the creative behind the communication creatives, how it's going to actually engage the consumer in a way that, you know, in the first 5 seconds, you're actually able to hold the audience attention. So that's one sub point, which is, can we, how do we, even if we are making a 30-second commercial, how do we make sure that the commercial is something the consumer would love to see when the teaser happens and the consumer don't zap it? That's one. The second thing is, I think some of the points which was mentioned earlier by Mr. Kapoor as well, and I fully endorse that, which is brands, if they have a clearly defined purpose, how do they actually start engaging with the consumer, not just through standard media vehicles, but in points where the consumers are there or the consumer's engagement is there. And a lot of brands have actually started doing this in, I think, largely triggered by CSR activities. But I am just saying that brands or co-branded activities where brands start activating themselves beyond the standard media vehicles need not always be for a CSR purpose. It could be for a non-CSR purpose as well. But brands have to start thinking, saying, if this is my message and this is the audience and I need to engage this audience, where do I find a place where I can go and engage the audience? And then actually go there and engage the audience. So I think they will have to unthink the standard ways of thinking in terms of, you know, that, you know, I can hold a consumer only through a television or only through a print or only through some outdoor hoarding, but start thinking, saying, who's my TG? What is my purpose? Where are the places where I can actually engage my consumers so that the purpose for which I am there and the purpose for which the consumer is there, they match and they sync. And when all these things sync, then you have activities like Swachh Bharat and so on. So I think I'm going to stop there. Those are my 3 points, which is chasing profiles. How do you make sure that you're able to, you know, engage consumers in a way that the purpose for which the brand is there and the purpose for which the consumer is there, they are in sync, and that need not be a CSR activity alone. And the third thing is, how do we actually make sure that you start integrating your brand messages in content, because interruptive advertising is also not something which a consumer is going to look for. So with those 3 key messages, I would like to stop here. Thank you very much, Anurag, once again for the opportunity, and I'm hoping to see your app very soon.